Thomas Rawls' big game re-established the Seahawks' identity and put the NFL on notice. To say that the Seattle Seahawks had an up-and-down season would be a gross understatement. While there were moments where it looked like Seattle was going to be contending for the Super Bowl, the wins over New England and Carolina were particularly impressive. A late-season slump made it more than fair to wonder if the Seahawks would embarrass themselves in the playoffs. Don't forget, Seattle ended the season with a blowout loss to the Packers, a closer-than-the-box score shows win over the Rams, a home loss to the Cardinals, and a down-to-the-wire win over the lowly 49ers. The Seahawks didn't exactly have momentum heading into the postseason. But they do now. They can thank Thomas Rawls for that. While wide receiver Paul Richardson had a breakout game and a spectacular catch that will be talked about, in more ways than one, for years, Doug Baldwin was his typical elite self, though stealing a touchdown and a booty catch might have been a bit much, and Russell Wilson was the man who delivered the ball to both of them. It was Rawls who was the most important player on the Seahawks offense Saturday. Rawls ran 27 times for a Seahawks playoff record 161 yards and a touchdown in Seattle's 26-6 win over the Lions, a performance that provided some much-needed balance to a once scuffling Seattle offensive attack. Saturday, we saw the Seahawks offense we're used to seeing in the postseason, a unit that's predicated on a power run game and augmented by a perennially underrated passing game. It's a balanced, effective, and at its best prolific offense. And if it is back in earnest, the Seahawks are absolutely true Super Bowl contenders again. Seattle's title hopes always were going to be tied to its incredible defense, but if it has an offense that's capable of keeping up with the NFL's best, and you can't do that without balance, the Seahawks are a formidable foe in the NFC indeed. Seattle's offensive resurgence could all be because of the Lions' bad defense. That's a fair criticism, for sure, but you know who else has a bad defense? The Falcons, Seattle's opponent in the next round. You know whose defense isn't all that great either? The Cowboys. Seattle's run game was almost non-existent this year. There were only 2 games in 2016 in which a Seahawks running back went for more than 80 yards, and it seemed, at times this season, that the Seahawks offense was only Wilson and Baldwin, and those 2 players, while tremendous, cannot outscore Atlanta and Dallas. But when the Seahawks run game was clicking, like it was in those 2 contests, Week 3 and 13, and Saturday, Seattle averaged nearly 24 first downs and 446 yards per contest. That's an offense that deserves to be feared. Perhaps it was a one-off against a bad team, but maybe it wasn't. It's certainly unlikely that Rawls will break his own team postseason rushing record in these playoffs, but with that defense and a talented offense that seems to have rediscovered its identity, who would bet against Seattle? The Seahawks, who limped into the postseason, aren't limping anymore, all thanks to their great runner,